Okay, there we go. Hey everybody, it's MP. DJ couldn't join us today, so we once again have the lovely Claire and of course Calum with us today. Say hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
Hello. Thanks for coming to watch again, to listen to us talk about Game of Thrones for a ridiculously long period of time.
Hopefully we'll be shorter. Well, we now have Claire here, but I was thinking that, oh, if it's just me and Calum, it'll go quicker, but who knows. But Claire's a little bit tired as well, so maybe she might jump out at any point.
Hopefully Claire's sternness will hurry us along if we start to overreach on certain topics.
Get moving. So this is our season 7, episode 3, The Queen's Justice review and analysis. And I guess we'll start off with the shit. It's been so long.
I was just going to say, I'm extremely proud of us that we've got the title correct for this episode. We've quite quickly stumbled upon another failure again.
Yes. Oh, I almost named it. Spoiler, well, not a spoiler, but I've also watched the leaked version of episode 4, so I won't be making any predictions for that episode, but Calum has not seen it. Claire, I don't know. Yeah, you watched. But it's just really good. That's all I'm going to say about that. But yeah, so I guess let's talk about the Jon coming to shore at Dragonstone.
Yes. So should I just kick us off as per?
Yeah.
Okay, so just to get, I'm honestly, I'm not gonna waste any time because it's getting quite late, so I'm just gonna go straight into it. So I think it's ironic how Daenerys claimed that she wanted to break the wheel, as she put it back in I think it was season 5. Pretty sure it was season 5. However, some of her sort of recent decisions and actions are beginning to sort of reveal her hunger for absolute power over anything else. I discussed this I think last week with DJ regarding sort of her treatment of Varys and why I deemed certain aspects of it to be slightly reminiscent of the Mad King. And now in this episode, she's making like various decisions which sort of again illustrate her lust for control and power. Primarily, these decisions consist of making Jon Snow and his men hand over their weapons, which I think was quite a stretch for me. Of course, I understand that it's justified because obviously she doesn't know Jon Snow. She doesn't know what they're coming for. However, to counter that, I would say that Tyrion, one of her most trusted advisors, has personally attested to Jon's character. Not to mention the fact that Jon brought with him 10 men, which of course is never going to be able to do any meaningful damage. So I just think sort of stripping them of their weapons was quite evident of her real lust for pure control over any situation that she finds herself in.
Claire?
Just what the meeting generally, Jon and Daenerys.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just anything on that scene, really?
Well, I didn't like it. No, I'm not falling asleep. I didn't like it the first time round. I thought I was kind of anticipating a lot more, to be honest. I kind of felt as though visually it was amazing. The throne room, I've spoken about this on my channel with Catherine. The words Jon Snow and King in the North just echoed off the walls, and had a massive impact. And actually, just everything about the technical aspect of that scene, the way that Daenerys starts off in the throne and then it ultimately ends up walking down to Jon.
Nice, good catch.
I like that, yeah.
And so the dynamics, but ultimately, it's this to me is 2 teenagers who are just pissing about backwards and forwards, kind of measuring each other up a little bit, and I thought they kind of started to introduce a little bit of sexual tension when they were sort of stood on the balcony outside. And I'm just hoping that if something like that is going to develop, which I'm guessing inevitably it will, that it'll be that it just won't be cheesy. That's all. That's all I'm hoping for, really.
I'm personally sorry, go ahead.
I'm not sure if that hope will come to fruition, to be honest with you. This could be anything but cheesy, but go on.
I thought it was quite interesting that Daenerys was talking about, when she was talking about her experiences and her history, and then she started talking about the history between their two families. She kind of, I don't know, she seemed to sort of twist things for me. I mean, the show and the books particularly, the relationship between her and Drogo, I you know, the moon and stars, etc., etc. And when she was talking about, you know, being sold off and raped and blah blah blah, it was like, yeah, not that I'm saying she hasn't had a difficult time, but I think she just came across as like, it annoyed me a little bit. Yeah,
I can definitely see what you're saying with that. Yeah, it did have like an air of
kind of entitled, very entitled. And actually, if you think about it, who's Daenerys actually got at the moment? Things aren't going too well. If you think about the episodes as kind of battle, you know, battles between Cersei and Daenerys, then it's definitely like, you know, Cersei's 2-0 at the moment, so things aren't going too great. But just things like the atmosphere in the room and the visuals in the room, and then if you the complete flip side of that in King's Landing, which is like full throne room, crowd cheering, you know, she kind of seems quite lonely, Daenerys. And I was saying on my video on my channel, she just needs to stop. She's too obsessed with telling him to bend the fucking knee. She needs to back off from that and realize actually she's in a reasonably vulnerable position if she wants to proceed on the basis that she wants to proceed, which is not burning the shit out of King's Landing and killing innocent people. And she needs some allies, but also, yeah, I just thought the interplay and the interaction between them was a little lackluster for me. But yeah, I'd be interested to know what you both think.
I agree in terms of lackluster on her part, because I feel as though she was very, I mean, I've sort of outlined this in what I just said, but she was very, like, again, controlling, and the only thing she sort of seemed to want to do is emphasize her own power and her own position, as opposed to like come to some sort of middle ground. And that's I think one thing that her leadership is lacking. Like, everything has to be on her terms. Like, if it's either her way or the highway, and I think that's quite succinctly depicted in this scene.
Yeah, that's exactly how I looked at it. There's a lot of posturing from her more than anybody, and the listing of her titles is just trying to you know, big up herself and say how great she is, and it sort of again gives her this drive for becoming the queen. She says, I was born to do this, which isn't necessarily true. Just because that's what people tell you doesn't make that true. You don't need to do that. But she's got it in her head that that's her whole purpose in life, is to become queen of the 7 kingdoms. But why? Just because Viserys said that he was supposed to be and then he died, so now you have to be? That's just kind of stupid. And it was great to see the juxtaposition, of course, Jon just being the king in the north and him not wanting that. He never asked for it. So Dany is asking for it. She wants to be. And Jon's just like, well, it was just given to me. I don't even want to be doing it. I just am because I feel that it needs to be done, which I thought was pretty cool. Sorry, I'm going to read off some of what DJ's points were. First of all, he says to please pass on how sorry he is to miss the review. And he's definitely going to be sorry to miss talking with you, Claire. He'll be a little bit pissed off when he actually sees this. What? But no, he had an appointment today. He was a little bit busy. So he says, John remains so humble during his meeting with Dany. He really shames her, in his opinion. And the other stuff he says kind of goes on to the later scenes of Dragonstone. So I guess if we want to move on to anything besides that, I guess now's the time to do so.
It was one of the really quick points that I wanted to add on to my previous, because obviously I said that there was one flaw in her sort of leadership, was that she's very, you know, her way or the highway. No, like there's no convening at a middle ground, and I think that's an intentional like portrayal by the showrunners, because if you look back at how she's been successful in her time as, like, you know, building up her armies and so on, it has very much been whenever she's made a decision and gone with it, that's been when she's prospered the most. And when she's tried to negotiate, it's when she's sort of floundered. So for example, when she left Tyrion in charge and Tyrion tried to negotiate with the leaders of Slavers Bay, that didn't achieve anything. And if anything, you know, they attacked Marine. And so she's seen firsthand what can happen if you like negotiate with the wrong people. Similarly, she's sort of listened to Tyrion's battle strategy within this war, where he said, you know, don't fly over straight away, like starve them out, etc. And she's seen where that's led. And so it's kind of it's interesting how, of course, I'm saying that's a flaw in her leadership, but of course, logically to her, every time she's tried to, you know, implement that sort of middle ground leadership and that sort of compromise, it's never worked in her favor. So you can understand how and why she would, you know, be that way. But that's just one quick point that I wanted to mention.
No, I think that's very interesting. You're absolutely right. I mean, when she does have to make the decisions, you're right. That is when she flounders. And I don't know if I've technically caught on to that in this sort of way before, but that's absolutely true. Like she has trouble with these areas, and Tyrion, and despite his best interests, has trouble strategizing in these big scenarios too, apparently. He was great at Blackwater, but other than that, I don't know if he's done too good of a job.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the funny thing is, I can see exactly where you're coming from with that. I think I actually said this exact same point last week.
Probably.
But I'm not sure if it was just in a private conversation, so I'll say it again just to be safe. Of course, people are criticizing Tyrion because it hasn't worked, right? What his plan in this episode has not worked. He's been outsmarted by Jaime. He's been intellectually defeated, right? But in terms of, you know, if you assess his strategies prior to the events actually happening, then you can't say that his plan that he created wasn't sound. So you, like, of course, now with the context and in hindsight, you know, Jaime was doing this and Tyrion did this, Jaime got the upper hand. Of course, anyone can say that. But if you actually assess his plan on the merit that it was, you know, founded on, then I think that in actual fact it was quite a strong plan. It just didn't happen to work in his favor this time.
Gotcha. Quick question for both of you. When you're talking, like if Claire started talking, is the camera switching? Because I keep getting it stuck on just one or the other of you, and I don't know how to stop that.
Check on the bottom right. Is either of us do either of our cameras have like a white border around?
Okay, there we go. Now everything's free. Perfect. Thank you. What about Melisandre and Varys? Anything there?
I had something there, but you guys can go if you want, because I feel as though I'm sort of overburdening this. No,
not at all. I have very specific points that I want to talk about, and so you guys are.
You got anything? You got anything for this, Claire, or should I just shoot? Your mic's muted. Your mic is muted.
Sorry. I don't really have much for this. I don't think Varys looked as terrified as a lot of people have said. I think he was just irritated by Mel being a bit cryptic again. Although that wasn't really that cryptic. We're both going to die in this foreign land. It's like, well, that's kind of where you've spent the majority of your time and your scheming and your planning and whatever. So yeah, she's not one of my favorite characters. And both they thought looked awful without like studio lights when they were outside and like the fresh air. They both look quite weathered and haggard and just like.
Well, Mel definitely didn't look as haggard as she has looked before. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I don't know why she's going back to Volantis, and I don't know if she's going to be bringing anything back from Volantis to help in the big fight, in the big battle. But I think just to point out that Varys doesn't seem to get on very well with Red Priestesses. He had a pretty bad negative reaction to, I can't remember her name, but the one that turned up in Marine.
Is it Kinvara?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, and also there's his history as well with the incidents that made him a eunuch, had some sort of magic involved. So I think he just feels uncomfortable generally around, agents of the Lord of Light. But I don't know what that means for his position or in terms of endgame. I just thought it was a bit of I don't know. What do you think about it?
See, do you want to go on this, MP?
Well, here, I'll just read up what DJ has a fair bit here. So I'll go with him, and then you can comment on things that he said as well and add your own.
That's fine.
He says, Mel says, my time whispering in the ears of kings has come to an end. Has anyone noticed that everyone but Jon has someone whispering in their ears? Dany has Varys, Cersei has Qyburn, and Sansa has Littlefinger. Says, Mel says, I will return to your spider one last time. I have to die in this strange country just like you. Have they both seen their deaths foretold? Varys possibly might have. Claire, I think you kind of, or maybe both of you sort of alluded to that. Varys heard a voice in the fire. Maybe it's related. Mel is on Arya's kill list, and Arya overheard Varys and Illyrio discussing the wolf and the lion will be at each other's throats. And if one hand can die, why not another? Would Arya recognize Varys by voice? That's a very good question. Could she, recognize him? This one's a little nod to me. He says, Dany says, I am the last Targaryen. Then he says, irony or a hint that Jon Snow is a Stark, and then in brackets for you, MP. Just thanks, DJ. Thank you very much.
I actually have some, just to bounce off that, I have something on R plus L equals J for this episode.
Okay, well, go ahead and I'll add some more into here, because if I just read it all off, then you'll never remember all the stuff he said. So if you have anything to add to some of those, I know I do.
Just because he mentioned R plus L equals J. So obviously, although I know that you detest R plus L equals J for
I don't detest it. I think
reasons
it's very
we don't have to get into now.
I just disagree with it.
But anyway, yeah, I think that there was another piece of evidence, or like as you might wish to argue, another way to make you think that R plus L equals J is correct.
Which is a certain dragon.
Huh?
Which is a certain dragon swooping down.
It is, but it's more the timing. It's not the dragon itself. It's the timing in which it took place.
Sure.
So there was sort of like I'm trying to think now. So there was like dialogue between Tyrion and Jon as they were sort of like marching up the walkway to Dragonstone, and Tyrion says something along the lines of, Stark men don't fare well when they travel south, and then Jon replies with, "I'm not a Stark." And then literally in that very same millisecond, the roar of the dragon can be heard. Mm-hmm. So it's like, obviously, these things in isolation could just be shrugged off. Stark men don't travel well when they travel south. Stark men don't fare well when they travel south. I'm not a Stark, fair enough. But then it's the fact that the dragon then swoops in and you hear the roar at exactly the moment when he says, "I'm not a Stark."
Yes.
Which is, I think it's sort of along the same lines with regards to how compelling it is as the scene in which Maester Aemon talks about a Targaryen being alone in the world, which is then directly followed by a transition into Jon Snow. So I think it's similar to that with regards to sort of how they're like trying to hint at this theory.
Sure, and I don't doubt that in a second. Just my take on it is different. The dragon was saying, yes, you are a Stark, and I'm not sure that I trust you. I like
that. That's a good retort, to be fair.
But yeah, like I say, anytime you get into these arguments, they can go both ways, and there's no way to. Most people will say no, they only go one way. I'm one of the very few that says, well, there's perhaps another way, but it's fine. It was definitely a throw to that theory specifically. Whether or not it's meaning what you think it means or what I think it means, we won't know until that's ever revealed.
Yes.
You know, in the UK, if you're walking down the street, Calum will know this, if you're walking down the street and you get shit on by a bird flying in the sky, it's deemed as lucky. That's what I thought was happening.
I've just envisioned Jon Snow being covered by like a huge 6-foot turd, like dropping on him. Like, why is this?
And everyone would have been theorizing about what's the symbolism, what's the sign. Well, yeah, I was
when we had that lunch that time, and that mayonnaise blew up and the bird shit at the same time. Oh, that's where my head will go to from any time I hear about birds shitting on people from now on. That was one of the most hilarious moments in my life. Did that just happen?
But yeah, I thought that's what was going to happen with the dragon when it swooped down. I thought that would be fantastic if he just shit all over Jon Snow.
You know, they've given us, actually, seeing as we're on the topic right now, a scene with human shit. We have not seen dragon shit before. I just wonder, is that in the cards at some point? Anyways, but yes, that was funny.
Moving swiftly on.
Anyways,
that's enough talk about shit for one night.
Yes. Well,
at least for my liking, anyway. You guys can go on if you want, but that's enough for me.
You guys have.
Funnily enough, actually, a bird shit on my car today. That's actually true. That is genuinely a true story. I left it in the car park, and when I got back, there was a huge. Why am I talking about this? I'm not going to talk about this anymore. But genuinely, that is true.
All right.
It's lucky. It's lucky.
Do you guys think
there's anything when I have to pay for a car wash?
DJ saying, questioning whether or not Arya would recognize Varys's voice, and would she view him as a friend or foe if she does?
Well, I kind of, just going back to what DJ was saying originally about kings and queens, advisors, and that everyone has one apart from Jon. What about Davos? Wouldn't you consider Davos somebody who advises him?
Isn't sneaky though. He's not whispering, so to speak. He's just giving straightforward counsel, whereas Littlefinger's cryptic, Mel's cryptic. I thought the same thing when I first read it. I was like, well, Jon has Davos, but the one thing that I would argue this with is Jon also has Sansa, who's, again, she's very much more direct, but at the same point, she has her own plans of some point, and Littlefinger has perhaps some sort of influence on her. That would be my only argument, but I understand absolutely what DJ is going with here. Calum?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, if I had to, play devil's advocate, I'd go down the same route that you did. Obviously, Jon left Sansa in charge. Sansa is now therefore like the queen until, well, not the queen, but the ruler until Jon returns, and then obviously Sansa's Littlefinger belongs to Littlefinger. Did I just say Sansa's Littlefinger? I meant Sansa's ear. Sansa's ear belongs to Littlefinger, so they all do have. All the major rulers currently have people whispering, but I do see TJ's point, obviously, that Jon Snow, as a leader, doesn't yet have one.
He also goes to add, Danny says there were centuries of peace and prosperity under Targaryen rule. A clear lie slash misinterpretation. There was a dance of dragons which caused insane damage, and also the Blackfire rebellions. Plus, Greyjoy wouldn't have been Targaryen rule. Just to mention a couple examples, which is true. Just because she says that doesn't make it true. Wasn't as peaceful as she lets on. They chose him as their leader because they believe in him. A nod to his point last week where Varys says, "I choose you," and the power of being chosen to lead rather than you know, just proclaiming yourself leader, which is another thing. And I don't believe I mentioned this in Small Council, but I should have. This is Tywin and Joffrey. Any man who feels the need to proclaim themselves king is no true king at all. Dany does this. Jon doesn't. He never says once that I'm king. He says they chose me to lead them, and I will. But he doesn't say I'm. Davos says it, of course. But
well, one thing that you can say to that to strengthen that argument is even his advisor or his caller. He said the name. He said that he was Jon Snow before he was king. Mm-hmm. So it's the priority of being Jon Snow and having Jon Snow's values before being king. So even when he was coerced and sort of forced to give Jon Snow's title, it came like, you know, following his name. So that I completely agree with you there. That's a brilliant catch.
Yeah. And that's all he has for this. So do we have anything? I mentioned that there's interesting color play between Varys and Melisandre. Varys is in blue and Mel's in red, so you got the ice and fire there. And I just had to mention that when I saw Varys in blue, I thought of frozen spiders, which is like ice spiders in the north. I'm trying to figure out what that means.
Ice spiders do exist because I saw pictures of them in the World of Ice and Fire.
Yes, yeah, for sure. But I'm trying to think of a metaphor of a spider in the north.
Oh, I thought you were predicting that we would get ice spiders in the.
I feel like Varys might be frozen, and we'll get a frozen spider that way at some point. But who knows? One last thing I wanted to ask you guys is, and this can end right here once you answer me. Correct me if I'm wrong. When Varys saw the voice or heard the voice from the flames, those were blue flames, correct? Claire's nodding. Yeah. Okay. Which is something weird. Yeah.
And he was wearing blue, so you can make of that what you will.
I've got. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I've got to mention again my buddy Catherine when we did our house polished review on my channel said about Mel saying that she'd brought ice and fire together, and Catherine was saying it was like that episode. I think it was The Simpsons where they were saying they mentioned the name of the movie in the movie.
Yeah. I've seen what you're talking about before. I can't remember where. Did you say it was a Simpsons episode?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Something else, but yeah, no, you're right. By the way, let everybody know where they can see you guys, Claire. It's on your channel.
Yeah, it's either on my channel or on Catherine's channel or on our friend Lisa's channel. There's three of us in House Polished. Yeah, so we just rotate it on each other's channels. And it's on, the next episode will be on Monday on Catherine's channel. So feel free to link that. That would be wonderful if you could do that. And I think that'll be the three of us discussing episode 4.
Let Catherine know that her comments are very much missed over here as well. It's not fair to get to hog her comments now.
Catherine's got some great insight.
A really good job. I mean, there's a little bit of nail polish stuff in the beginning, but other than that, you're pretty much straight into Game of Thrones all the way, right?
Yeah.
I was going to say, Dunk, if you're jealous that she's hogging Catherine, then I'm sure you can get yourself some nail polish and join them.
That's been tried on me many a time already before by that one, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, I
told her I would let her paint my toenails, and that's about it.
Right, not getting into this. So so I just had like a small thing on the Melisandre and Varys scene. So obviously, it's interesting that this is the second time that Varys has sort of been. This is kind of going against the grain of what Claire was saying. So it's interesting to sort of contrast our opinions, because I did think that his reaction was significant. So I think this is the second time that he's sort of been visibly and audibly silenced by a Red Priestess. Obviously, the first being, as we mentioned before, Kinvara in Marine. And I think what's happening is they're sort of triggering his what can only be described as, I suppose, like PTSD in a way. Of it taking him back to like the torture that he received. I don't think that they are saying like the same words that he heard in the Flames, which is what I've heard many people suggest. Purely because I think that there'd have been more of a fuller reaction, if you like, if it were the exact same words, either then or later on. So I think it's triggering like the memories, but he can't work out why it's triggering them, which is why he has that look of like pure shock and confusion, which has been present in both his encounters with the Red Priestesses. So I think it's the confusion that's sort of driving his visible state of confusion, because he doesn't understand why they're triggering, but he just knows that they are. But obviously he can now draw on the fact that it's happened twice with the same type of person, if you like.
No,
that's all I had to say on that.
I like that with the PTSD, because that's also definitely in play in a lot of situations within the story. Specifically with Theon, we saw happen the other episode, but Varys is a little bit more subtle. But I agree with that for sure.
Should we go on to the King's Landing scene, because we've spent too much time in the north? Well,
sure.
in Dragonstone, sorry.
Do you want to hang on a second? Do you want to say anything about Jon and Tyrion having that brood off on the kind of cliff?
Oh yes.
You guys can. I haven't got anything of significance for that.
Go for it, Claire. I mean, I have a lot, but mine's been said before, and people already mad at me for saying it. But go say what you got to say.
Just that Jon looked very out of place. He looked like, and a lot of people in this story do. So you take Daenerys out of Essos, which is where we've seen her all the way through, and in Westeros she looks like extra Valyrian and extra Targaryen against the backdrop of Westeros. And the Dothraki looked massive, like huge compared to Jon. So it was just seeing those different cultures, but also Jon looked very, very northern, and sounded very northern, and referred to himself as a northern fool. I just don't think that northerners were meant to be anywhere in the south at all. And I just feel uncomfortable that he's there, and I won't really feel comfortable till he goes back up again. Again, the Tyrion's role, I kind of feel sorry for Tyrion, because he just doesn't seem to be getting it right in terms of military strategy. I don't know whether that is, as Calum says, just sheer bad luck and his plans were kind of okay. But I think he's more of he's not his father's son in terms of like Jaime, a kind of war hero type thing. That's not Tyrion, but he's more of a relationship broker. So what he's doing is he's focusing on the politics. She does need somebody who will help her, I think, with military strategy going forward, but I don't think Tyrion's doing a great job.
But that raises a very interesting question. Do you think perhaps she might send for Daario in the future? That would be interesting. That would be...
I would have... The reason I give Tyrion credit with regards to his battle strategy, I don't think it's bad luck. I think he has been outplayed by Jaime. Like there hasn't been any luck involved. I just think that on its merits, his plan was sound, and I think that the reason I'm giving him I'm cutting him some slack with this was that I feel as though his potential for military command has been sort of embodied by the fact that if it wasn't for Tyrion, then Stannis would have taken King's Landing back in season 2. Tyrion was the only reason in why those ships didn't just absolutely destroy King's Landing, because I'm not sure if you guys remember, because it was a really iconic scene, but the sheer number of ships that Tyrion's mind and mind alone was responsible for destroying is not to be forgotten. But I do agree with what Claire's saying as well. The fact is he has lost with regards to his battle strategy against his brother. But I do think that on its merits, again, the plan was sound. But that's all I'd say.
Do you think it was Jaime that just outwitted him, or do you think that there was that somebody's betraying Dany and feeding information to the other side?
I haven't really thought about that, actually. It's an interesting thread to pull on. One thing that I think maybe goes against that, although to be fair, it doesn't have to, but some people would argue that it would, was the fact that Jaime quite easily justified why giving up Casterly Rock was a good thing. So obviously he said the only thing that Casterly Rock is valuable for is my childhood memories. And I think if someone else had sort of been whispering that they were going for Casterly Rock, I don't think Jaime's first instinct would have been to give it up. I think it would have been to defend it and, you know, send more people there or whatever. So I think that it was actually him understanding that Casterly Rock wasn't, you know, the strong fort that it's perhaps perceived to be. But yeah, I mean, you could argue that the thing is, it's definitely quite an interesting thing to say, because I haven't actually thought about that, a potential betrayal, because Dany's very susceptible to betrayal, as we've seen throughout her story. But yeah.
On that note, just it's sort of not the thing, but is Tyrion aware that there's nothing at Casterly Rock anymore? Does he know that, or is it just Jaime and Cersei that are aware of this?
Well, I'm not sure, but he's been out of Westeros for many years now, hasn't he? I mean, I'm not sure how many it's been. I'm sure it's been years though, right? Or is it not?
Sure, at least 2, I would say.
Yeah, so maybe it's changed in that time, perhaps. I'm not sure. Or maybe Jaime and Tyrion have different ideals on what's valuable with regards to war. So it might just be a difference of opinion. Potentially,
I don't think it was necessarily empty. I think they emptied it and just left a skeleton garrison. And with the whole point being that you trap the enemy inside, and that's they're not coming back out again. But which I think is a horrible way. If that's what's going to happen with Grey Worm, I think that's going to be a horrible way for him to go, just being kind of stuck. You know, he keeps going on about being brave and needs to die bravely. So just kind of starving inside Casterly Rock with the Iron Fleet outside, not being able to escape. But who knows, but it's just a bit of a shitty situation for the Unsullied to be in at Casterly Rock. And I think, again, this is talking with Catherine on my channel, but we were talking about the betrayals, and the betrayal for love may not necessarily be directly somebody betraying Dany for love. It could be somebody betrays Dany. Yes, somebody betrays Dany because of love is an issue for them. And I think that I don't trust Melisandre. There's something about Melisandre that makes me not trust her.
I agree with you, especially the last few episodes of her interactions with Davos. Those have had me scratching my head a little bit.
But I think that she may betray Dany if something inevitably happens with Grey Worm.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, and that's the betrayal for love. She will, you know, what am I doing in this place? This isn't my homeland. This is the only, you know, possibly, I don't know. I think there is potentially somebody around. I mean, Catherine calls them the 3 heads of the sheep, which is Tyrion, Varys, and Melisandre. So it's like any one of those 3 could.
I like that.
Could betray us. You know.
One thing that also is potential evidence for that is it always seems to be with Dany in particular. It always seems to be the one closest to her that betrays her. So the main and prime example being Jorah. And in this episode, Tyrion says that it's either in this episode or it's in a previous one, or maybe in the books. Tyrion, no, not in the books, of course, not in the books. In one of the episodes, Tyrion says that Melisandre is Dany's most trusted advisor.
Yes, he does.
So therefore, she's the closest one to Dany, and history repeats itself. Maybe she's the closest, therefore she's the betrayer.
I like that. See, I was also thinking perhaps Tyrion would betray her for Jaime in some instance or another. But yeah, no, you're right.
It also seems to me that the prophecy sounds like it should be men betraying Dany for certain, you know, for money, for love, for loyalty, whatever. But if you actually think about it, particularly in the show, it's all women who have betrayed Daenerys. Gotcha. So the Dothraki handmaiden who betrayed her in Karth, and Miri Mazdur who betrayed her. And I just think potentially this maybe have. I'm suspicious of Melisandre. I'm just putting that out there. I don't.
I like that. No. Yeah. Anytime you can flip something, you're right. It makes it seem like it's male, so it probably isn't male. Yeah. Just one more thing. We kind of segued a little bit to Casterly Rock, but the whole Jon Tyrion scene. All I'll say on that is the dialogue between them of what it is that. How do you make somebody believe something that they can't believe is my sort of arguments against R+L=J, and that's just what I struggle with, is how to get people to see something when they don't want to see it. And that's what I got out of that conversation. Then again, both ways, it could be that TV show watchers don't necessarily see R+L=J and they're giving it to them, although I argue that everybody knows about it by now through, you know, people spoiling it for and explaining things to them. But that's what I got out of that whole entire conversation, was just, you know, dig a little bit deeper into things, and you might move on from what you thought was true and find something else along the way.
Someone could argue though that you could apply that to R+L=J, because on first read through. Yeah, but that's what I mean. Because no, but not in the way that you said it though. So obviously you're thinking of it as R+L=J is the accepted theory, but if you dig deeper, then you get something else. Yes. But what I'm saying is on first read through, not many people picked up R+L=J. Therefore, the accepted theory was that Ned bastarded the child, right? So if you dig deeper, as people have, you get to R+L=J. It's just because it's been circulated so heavily throughout online.
Sure. And at the Tower of Joy, they say Rhaegar lies beneath the surface. So that's a nod to Rhaegar's right there. I say once you pass Rhaegar, you can still dig a little bit deeper.
No,
else.
I completely see what you're saying. I'm just
Yeah.
I think that's already so far. There's been in each of the episodes up to date, not including episode 4, but there's been some juicy dialogue in each of the episodes where you can take that particular sentence a million different ways, and you know, depending on what your theory flavor is, I guess, then you know you can adapt that. But there is an interesting part that in this episode where Dany says something was, I haven't written the quote down, but something like, perhaps
we know.
Yeah, perhaps we all need to rethink what we think we know, which I thought, oh, that's quite interesting. And also just thinking about that parallel to the viewers and the readers, much earlier on when Jon was meeting Daenerys and he referred to everybody as children playing at a game. And I just thought that kind of felt a little bit like how we feel sometimes, that it's just we're children playing at a game, and there could be a much, you know, everything could just flip on its head at any point, particularly in the books, obviously. But yeah, that's.
I think one thing that does support your sort of theory, MP, which I've never really been able to understand. So maybe I'm missing something obvious. But obviously in the Tower of Joy scene, which was supposed to be the big reveal for Jon Snow's parentage, they didn't allow us to hear the name, and like obviously that would go towards maybe the fact that it isn't what we think it is. But I've never really understood. Like, no one's ever answered to me other than that explanation why they obfuscated the name in that scene. Because if that was the big reveal, Why would I mean maybe some people could say, well, they didn't want to make it too obvious or whatever.
From my point of view, there is Bran seeing it, Bran's witnessing it, but he doesn't, and you have it in this episode too. I need to be able to see better, he says to himself. He sees that scenario play out, and his mind, he thinks that it's Jon. Therefore, we get the Jon scene right afterwards. Yet, that doesn't mean that Bran's actually correct in what he's seeing. It's just his assumption.
Yeah, and we've seen firsthand the fact that visions are very much up for interpretation, namely with Melisandre's vision of the Winterfell banners in flames and whatever, and she obviously assumed that was Stannis, whereas in actual fact it was Jon being the victor there. So I completely see what you're saying there.
I mean, it's an extremely hard sell to people when you have that scene of the birth and then Jon's head right there, and I could just be the biggest idiot in the world by not just saying, you know what, there it is. I'm wrong, but I still can't do it.
Yeah,
I have not, and neither have they necessarily given us proof. I know D&D did a behind the scenes about that scene, and they said this is the scene that George asked us about that we got right. But again, my thinking is, what is right? I mean, you give George the answer that he wanted you to give him?
Yeah.
Or did you give him the answer that was actually correct? Or like, what if I was George, I would want that secret not to be known. I would want to know that you're thinking about things, but I would want you to give me the wrong answer, and to me that would be the right answer. That would be what I wanted to hear.
Yes.
So I mean, it's up for debate. Sorry.
I just want to illustrate your point really by saying it's so easy to be able to do this, to take a piece of dialogue and do this. And there's an example that's really obvious, which illustrates everything that you've just been saying. It's where Tyrion turned round. He's trying to broker that relationship with Jon, and they're talking outside and having that brood off. But Tyrion turned around and says, talking about Daenerys and trying to curry favor, she protects people from monsters like you, or you do, or that's what it sounds like, or it could be. Again, this doesn't mean anything, but you could interpret that particular sentence as she protects people from monsters like you.
Yes. Sorry, you just made me. I know that DJ had mentioned something about that here someplace, so I'm looking for that. But anyways, yeah, no, absolutely.
Can I quickly take this time to answer a question that I've been getting quite frequently?
Mm-hmm.
It's going back a bit, so I promise this is the last thing I'll say on the Jon scene. But I forgot that like many of my more casual friends have been asking me this. And I'm not. This is not to say that our viewers are casual, but obviously there may be one or two that have this similar question. So, but like a lot of people are asking me why Jon stopped Davos when he was about to say that Jon gave his own life, or he took a knife in the heart, or whatever it was. And obviously, many people argue that it may have allowed Dany to see Jon on like an equal level as herself. So she gave birth to dragons, Jon was resurrected, etc. However, like sort of to quickly answer that question, just in case, again, any of our viewers may have it, which I doubt they will, because looking at the comments, many of them think about it quite in depth. But I think it's just a simple case of Jon not wanting to overwhelm Dany with too much supernatural shit too quickly.
Sure.
And I think it's quite interesting, this, because it links back to the very early seasons, so like 1, 2, and 3 most specifically, in which many TV and movie critique outlets said that one of the main reasons why Game of Thrones, why Game of Thrones garnered such a mainstream popularity was because it sort of spoon-fed the supernatural stuff and focused primarily on the human aspects of the show, like politics, sex, war, etc. Of course, there were aspects of the supernatural within the show. The opening scene and like Dany giving birth to the dragons, probably the main ones of the first season. But I think the sparsity in which these things sort of appear in the early seasons made them so much more impactful. Yeah. The same way that in this scene, Jon doesn't want to overwhelm a queen because he's seen firsthand the fate of those who are deemed to be like mad.
Can I just step in?
Yep.
No. Yes.
And say, I think there's a much simpler answer to that, which is he just said to her, the big enemy is the army of the dead. They're nasty, they're evil, they're going to kill everyone. This army of the dead. Oh, by the way, I'm dead.
Too.
Yeah. That was something I thought as well.
So, I think it was just a case of like, let's not go there just yet, because what you don't want to do with a potential ally is start off by confusing the situation in any way, shape or form. Just keep it simple.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, resurrection is likely to be something that crops up later on. It cannot be that Dany refuses to accept that there's other weird magical shit going on in the realm when she's got 3 dragons, you know, her children.
Yeah, exactly.
She's going to have to change her tact, I think. Yeah.
She's quite stubborn though, isn't she?
I can argue though that in this world, dragons aren't necessarily that supernatural in this world that they're in. So it's not.
The birth was though.
Pardon me?
The birth was. The dragons aren't, but the way in which they were born, you could argue, is.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. And the situations with Miriam Mazdur. So this is what DJ said. Tyrion refers to Cersei as a familiar monster like my sister. She is referred as a monster twice in this episode by Olenna at the end. Reminds me of Cold Hands saying to Bran that I'm your monster. And he keeps asking himself if Cersei will go so far as to willingly ally herself with the Night King to defeat the army, which I think's kind of an interesting question. I mean, I can see her attempting that. I don't know if I can personally see the Night King accepting that, but maybe. I mean, we have in the histories the seduction of one of the king at the wall, or right? So perhaps a reverse sort of notion of that. I mean, yeah. I don't know.
I mean, one thing I see his point entirely, and I think it's a good one. One thing I would say though is I'm not sure how they could assist with this war. I don't think they're going to get there in time for this particular war.
Because
unless they're within, you know, it's taken them 6 seasons to march from here to here, and then they're going to go from here to here in like 10 episodes time. But then again, we've seen the geographical logic of Game of Thrones. So
sure. In my opinion, the best strategy is for Jon and Sansa and everybody is just say, fuck them. They want to come attack us, let them attack us. Because then you get all the armies up there, and then once they see what's coming, what are they going to do? We're going to fight you, Jon, instead of, no, I guess we should maybe focus our attention on this big army of dead people coming our way rather than, you know, piss about castles and lordships.
Yeah, I don't see the Lannister army marching north personally. I think it's with Winter being in the state that it's in now. I think especially with Jaime now showing that he's sort of improving with his with regards to his mental prowess when it comes to, you know, warfare. I think he would you know, definitely vote against sending men north.
Gotcha. DJ also pointed out that we see the Greyjoy's breath in the air. So it's getting cold.
Yeah,
down in the south.
That's a good catch.
Moving on, King's Landing finally.
Yes, I have a prediction I'd like to make for not necessarily the next episode, but the next within like sort of the next. Well, let's say within this season. So I think one of the most telling lines from this episode is when the gold arrives, you will have the Iron Bank support. Oh, I think it was you have the Iron Bank support when the gold arrives.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that dialogue is very purposely sort of interwoven into that scene. And I think it makes it crystal clear that the gold will absolutely not arrive at the Iron Bank of Bravos. I don't know how, because obviously, you know, the Lannisters have just taken loads, you'd imagine, from Highgarden. And I have 2 sort of ways in which this could happen, but there may be another way. Or maybe it does actually end up there, but I don't think it will, just purely because of that line. But I think that, and you'll understand now why I asked you this question before we started regarding the city of Astapor or Yunkai or whatever. You remember when I said which one did Dany infiltrate? And I still can't remember which one it was. So that was a bit pointless.
But you're talking about the similar version of the invasion of Casterly Rock where they snuck in through the.
No. So I'm saying that. So I'm trying to think. I'm trying to sort of theorize how the gold that the Lannisters have now won't make it to the Iron Bank, because I don't think it will, purely because of that line. So I think that potentially Dany will sort of send like a force. I don't know how big, like maybe like a task force of like Dothraki soldiers to like maybe infiltrate or like somehow destroy that stash. Or maybe one other sort of theory that I had was perhaps the Lannister men on the way back from Highgarden will run into the Unsullied and like a big battle will happen, because I think the next episode is the Spoils of War, isn't it?
Yes.
So that could refer to the Spoils of War being the gold that they've accumulated from Highgarden, but it wasn't really a war. It was they just ran over them, which sort of makes me think that the Unsullied might like engage them, because they can't just stay at Casterly Rock. Obviously, geographically, it doesn't necessarily make sense, but we've seen the show sacrifice geographical logic for plot lines multiple times. So I'm trying to work out how the gold won't make it, because obviously currently the Lannisters have full control of it. But I just don't think that they would have put that line in. You know, you have the Iron Bank support when the gold arrives. It was very intentional, in my opinion. But I think, yeah.
No, good point, especially with the title of the next episode as well. Yeah, very good point.
It could get hijacked, like Dick Turpin style, by Sandor and the Brotherhood Without Banners.
What the hell is a Dick Turpin?
He was a famous highwayman.
Oh, okay.
The reason I think it has to be the Unsullied is because the Lannisters didn't really lose any men during Highgarden, so they still have a full force to escort the gold back to King's Landing and then obviously over to Braavos. So it has to be if someone's it has to be either a task force of like Dothraki, which is obviously Dany's used task forces to break strongholds before, or like a big battle, which would have to be the Unsullied, because they don't want to use Dothraki like in a full army. But yeah, that's the only two ways that I can think that the gold won't make it back, but I just don't think it will.
But how will the Unsullied be there if they're garrisoned at?
Because they'll march back. Is what I thought. That's why I said it didn't make geographical sense. But as I said, the show's sacrificed geography for plot lines in the past. So I just thought maybe it would be a cool thing.
Yeah.
I do like Claire's little Robin Hood reference though, with the Brotherhood Without Banners though. Stealing from the rich to give to the poor. That was funny. Anything else?
Nope. That's my only prediction.
What about it all at King's Landing?
I have something that's relating to King's Landing, but it's like sort of an overall theme discussion. So if you guys have something specific to King's Landing, then go right ahead.
DJ pointed this out, and I actually noticed this too. He says Euron rode in like Tywin did, and also didn't bow to the Queen. He left out that Ned too is the other person. We've had 3 people ride into the throne room in King's Landing on horses throughout the show. One was way back in the histories, of course. We just see it in memory, but it's interesting when they do that, and I don't know why they do it. What does that mean? The people that ride into the King's Landing, into the throne room on a horse.
Perhaps it means maybe it's like a metaphor for their perceived position. So they think they're higher than they are, but really they're only a few feet off the ground. So, for example, Ned, he assumed that he was all powerful because he had the gold cloaks. Rides in to
No, he rides in when Aerys.
Yeah, I know. No, I know that it's not at that time, but what I mean is it's like a representation of what's to come. Because obviously, I'm saying that it's going to be the downfall. So Euron rides in now, and he's not in the shit now, but I'm saying it's going to affect him in the future. So perhaps it's it gives sort of evidence for their future perceived position. Whereas then they're brought right back down to reality because, again, they're only on a horse. They're not elevated.
Like, personally, I know from reading the books, the amount of references to when somebody gets off of a horse within the books, like say their horse is killed and then they're dead. It happens in the books all the time. As soon as George writes that got down off his horse, Ned gets stabbed in the leg by Jaime way back when. As soon as he gets off his horse, there's so many references to this type of shit happening in the books that I just happen to figure out. And I've always been trying to figure out what he's going at with that. But I like what your take on it was.
Actually, I've got something else to add as well. Actually, thinking about it, maybe it's maybe I said obviously a heightened sense of perceived power, but to be more specific, maybe they think they're on their level with the monarch. So when Ned walks in, he's on the horse elevates him above the steps.
Mm-hmm.
So he's on an eye line with whoever's sat on the throne.
Jaime.
So that's a representative of who, like, of their sort of, they think that they're on a level with the monarch. The same way that Euron thinks he's on a level with the monarch because he wants to marry her. Mm-hmm. So they think they're on a level with the monarch, but really they're on a horse, which is a very feeble structure, if you like, whereas the king is on, like, atop the steps, which is a lot harder to destroy.
Also goes to what Claire had mentioned earlier about Dany walking down to Jon's level, and we get Tyrion do this last season as well. He comes down the steps to talk to the not the royal people, but I don't know, the common folks representatives, not the slavers, but the common folks representatives.
Yeah.
DJ, do you have anything, Claire? King's Landing?
There was chat in the small council chat when you did your group panel thing the other day that Yara has been in a couple of episodes now. I think probably all 3 this season, and apart from her I think the first episode, let me start this again. For the last 2 episodes we've seen Yara and she's not had any dialogue. Has she had her tongue cut out?
Ooh, I think he might be onto something there.
Yeah,
I think he absolutely might be onto something there because of course Euron's ship is named Silence because he cuts out the tongues of all the people.
And we know that it's them doing that during that battle. At the end of that battle, his men were cutting out tongues.
I think you might be right there, Claire.
Just that, but it wasn't me. It was just a lot of people were asking that in the chat the other day, but it wasn't picked up in the small council chat.
Yeah, those are great observations.
Can you imagine how horrific that reveal will be when, like, I can just like.
No, I love that. That's a good catch from the people who did that. That's great, for sure.
Would you rather have your tongue cut, your tongue chopped off, or your dick chopped off?
Tongue.
Fair enough. I thought you might have to think about that more, but
no,
maybe not.
No, I don't like talking the best of times. Are you crazy?
Fair point. Okay, that's fine. Here's me thinking I'm asking you an interesting question that you might have to think about, but then it just gets answered instantly. So
another thing that I would say is the people in King's Landing are really so fickle. You know, they'll come out for, it's like entertainment when Euron's walking through, you know, it kind of mirrors Cersei's walk of shame, but he's absolutely lapping it up, and the small folk of King's Landing seem to be like totally thrilled by him, to the point where they're throwing food. They could be throwing lots of other stuff, but food is a stupid thing for them to be throwing when, you know, that's going to be in very scarce supply very soon. But it just made me think that they don't care who's on the Iron Throne, really. They don't care about Lannisters being evil or Cersei being, they just simply don't care. They just like to have a bit of entertainment of somebody like Euron, this charismatic, you know, person that's coming into the Red Keep, just to break up the monotony of their day of living in that environment. Nobody's, you know, Robert wasn't loved by the masses. Certainly Joffrey wasn't. They've had it really crap for a long time. So I just think they're a bit, they'll flip flop. They'll flip flop. Yeah, I wouldn't sort of ever guarantee I think Dany's got a hard time ahead of her, because not only has she got the other
foreign army
kingdoms, if you like, and other leaders in different areas of Westeros to ally with, or bend the knee or whatever, but the small folk as well. But anyway, yeah, I just thought they were a bit silly for throwing food as well in the crowd. And also, I thought that was very, I mean, I don't know what else could have happened in this scenario, but when Cersei promised Euron, yeah, you'll get your heart's desire, you know, basically you'll get whatever you want, marriage, whatever, after the war. Because Euron doesn't strike me as a very patient person who'll wait for, you know, I think either she needed to guarantee more, or he will also flip-flop quite easily.
Euron is my number one. Euron is my number one death prediction for this season.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, he wrote it on the horse. All those guys are dead.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever going to get to. I did think that they would marry in a very quick sort of Tom and Marjorie 3-minute wedding scene. You know, I thought we'd have something like that, and then I don't know why I thought they'd get married, but yeah, I just thought he seems a bit more impatient to be like, yeah, you know, it kind of feels like she's sidelined him a little bit. And at any point he could switch around and just say, no, you know, your force entirely depends on me at the moment. And you're telling me I've got to wait till, you know, it just doesn't seem like something that Euron would.
Now that he's already trashed the Greyjoys, now he does have cards. Beforehand, she could have said no, and what's he going to do, pack up and go home? No, he wanted to you know, trash Yara and everybody anyways. But you're right, now he doesn't. Now he has some bargaining chips at his own.
Yep.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I forgot to as well in the small council. Yeah, it's just interesting how easily the small folk, you know, flip-flop. Cersei just blew up half the city. But guess what? She's got this guy with her now, so yay! It's all good. It's really funny, and good point on the food too. Like how wasteful people can be when they don't know what's coming around the corner, right?
Would you guys attribute the lack of caring of the common folk to quite simply just the fact of like their level of ignorance? I mean, they don't know that Cersei was responsible for blowing up the Red Keep, so of course why would they think it was her? Of course, I don't think it's entirely that. I do completely agree. They don't really care. Potentially, even if they did know, but I think a lot of it does come down to ignorance, because they just don't know anything.
I think it would have leaked out, and people whisper and people suspect. I mean, even us in our things right now, we talk about things that we just surmise in the world about the politicians of the age, and we don't necessarily know what's going on behind closed doors, but we can still sort of grasp it. I think that's kind of what the people would do. So, I mean,
I think our ability to look in, yeah,
they're more concerned about, we want to live and we don't want to be invaded by somebody, so you show us the power.
Yeah,
we have a fighting chance, and we'll cheer for that no matter who we are, because we just want to live.
Yeah, for sure. I have one more point to make, and then I'm done. So if you guys want to rattle anything off, then feel free. Do you want to talk about your the metaphor, or have you already discussed that on Small Council?
Which metaphor?
Your metaphorical understanding of the invasion of
Casterly Rock. We'll get there when we actually go to Casterly Rock. I'm gonna do some DJ stuff here.
Sure thing.
2 people who killed Cersei's children are dead by the end of this episode, both of whom were destroyed by poison. That's technically not right. Ellaria is still alive, and she's the one that killed whatchamacallit. If Cersei is responsible for Tommen's death, will she also die by her own poison? This was hinted at during the Battle of Blackwater when she held Tommen in poison in case they lost the city.
It would go against the Valonqar, but it's a very good catch.
Yes. I think we'll have to get him to explain that a little bit better. I can't quite make it. He then goes on to say, but this was in bold, and then his next line is, Cersei is like poison to Jaime, which I agree with. I think I did mention this. Possibly symbolized by her kissing him after the Ellaria scene.
No!
Jaime...
He's stolen my point.
Or DJ, well, I guess both of you, when we had talked about this privately between us, you had both recognized this, and I didn't. I missed it, and you can totally see the lipstick when you're there. You should have known it was coming, but
yeah,
I didn't also recognize that she kissed Jaime right afterwards, like it pretty much scene to scene, right?
Yeah, directly afterwards.
She took an antidote.
She took an antidote, but that doesn't stop it from, like, she did wipe off her lips, but I mean, we're just assuming any residual. I mean, I don't think Jaime's poisoned by any means. It's just
Qyburn wouldn't have given her the antidote unless it completely cleared that from a system. Otherwise, there would have been like, yeah, there's a bit of, here's the antidote, wipe it off your lips, but there might be a bit of residual, so don't go around giving anyone a blowjob. She took an antidote, which meant there wasn't any risk to anyone after that.
I understood it as there was no risk to her. By the way, I don't think that she's poisoned Jaime, but I
don't either. It's just
I do, but not in that way.
Metaphorically, she's poisoning Jaime, is what you're saying.
Everyone's just stealing my final point, so that's fine.
Sorry, but we know that you had them, so that's fine, and I wasn't trying to steal it. I mean, I like. No,
I'm only joking. I'll run through it anyway because it sort of encompasses the final scene, well, final sequence with Highgarden and whatever. So I'll just rattle through this quickly now that it's been sort of portrayed before me. And then I can just bounce off you guys.
Sure.
So essentially, there's like a definite theme of poison through this episode. So obviously, we have Cersei poisoning Tyene, and then the poisoning of Olenna. But one of the main poisons, which I haven't heard many people discuss up until now, is sort of the mental poison, which has been sort of applied to 2 people. So the first being the mental poison in which Olenna afflicted onto Jaime. So there's no antidote for words, right? So especially if the words that are said are powerful enough to taint the mind, in this case I say that they are, especially seeing as though Jaime can't share the burden of the knowledge that he has, because he knows exactly what it'll do. It'll just make Cersei mad. So he has to carry that burden purely by himself. But I think the second most powerful poison of the episode is, I think, shot purposely to, again, this is sort of what we just discussed, but I think it's shot purposely to make the viewers think. So directly following Cersei's poisoning of Tyene, as we said, kissing Jaime, and it made me slightly confused. I'm slightly confused because, I was thinking about the possibility of her accidentally poisoning Jorah, accidentally poisoning Jaime with like the residue of the substance. Obviously, she's taken the antidote, which clears her, but Jaime hasn't. But the more I thought about it, the more I think it's referring to Cersei herself as the poison, which links back to my theory, which I outlined in our first or second episode review regarding Jaime and Cersei's positioning on the map and what that means for the Valonqar prophecy. So that's my final.
No, I like that, and I'm in agreement with that, Claire.
I like the there's no antidote for words.
Yeah, that was sweet.
That's perfect. I agree. There's definitely a theme of poison throughout this episode, in various different ways. I also think that, I mean, I don't know whether we'll get on to Jaime, but maybe if we skip through Jaime, it's just to say that, oh my God, it's really annoying me, just really annoys me that he's not, and I don't know to what extent he knows things like the really evil shit that Cersei's doing. Like, I don't know if he knew that she was doing the whole poison thing with the sand snakes or what, but I don't think she really gives a shit about Jaime anymore. I think she's gone so power crazy that she's completely using him, and he's allowing that to happen because he just doesn't know what else to do. He doesn't know what else to do, and also he doesn't know the extent of how depraved she really is and where her mind can go. To the extent that at the very end scene with Olenna, you've got a warrior there, the commander of the Kingsguard, and he uses a woman's weapon to take out Olenna. I mean, you know, he did it. I appreciate from her point of view that he did that, but he told her Cersei would have dragged you through the streets. You would have had your head on a spike. It would have been violent. It would have been violent and aggressive and warlike. But that's Cersei's position. Jaime gave her a gentle poison that would just make her drift away. So that, to me, that was like, that just illustrates how much in that relationship between Jaime and Cersei has changed so much. And she's got the power and the will to just use him and abuse him, to be honest. And he seems to be willing to just accept that. He even said to Olenna, yeah, I kind of like, you know, you're right, I've kind of accepted my lot. But I don't think he realizes that she is such a monster. And I'm wondering at what point Jaime will go, holy shit. You know, I mean, there was that initial no in the kind of intimate scene between them when she was doing a power crazy, like, you know, but to me, that was, and I mentioned this in the comments at Small Council, was nothing more than like posh masturbation for Cersei. She wasn't really that interested in Jaime. She was just using him as a tool at that time because that's what she wanted. There wasn't any tenderness or anything. She doesn't give a shit. Who knows about it? That's how much she cares about it. She doesn't care about anyone else. She's ultimately going to slip up. Surely she's going to slip up. And I know everyone's really pissed off that Cersei just seems to keep winning and winning and winning all the time at this point. But yeah, to conclude, I would say for me, Jaime is annoying as all hell at this point, like really fucking winding me up every time I see him on screen. And at what point will he realize what the fuck is? I just want to scream at the screen, wake up, Jaime, wake the fuck up and see what's going on around you. But yeah, that's kind of my take on Cersei and Jaime.
Pop quiz, or the question for you both. After seeing this episode, is Cersei pregnant? Just a yes or no in your minds.
Mm-hmm.
No.
No? Don't think so? Calum?
I'd say no. Primarily because I think the show will be wrapped up inside 12 months. So I think that would only leave 3 months for a baby to actually be present. So in that respect, then again,
she said that. Sorry, Callum.
Go on.
I was just going to say, she said to Jaime, and he didn't, like a wet lettuce, didn't even respond to this, that her last born baby son, who she invested everything into, had betrayed her. So I don't think she gives a shit about having children or being pregnant or having an heir. This is all about her now. This is all about her. And I find that baffling, because there is no dynasty. There is no, there won't be any Lannister empire after this. And she's got to bite what? Maybe on the best side, 20, 30 years of just lording it around and being queen of everything. But what the hell does that? There's nothing. There's no substance there.
I'll explain why. First of all, if she gets knocked up again, she, in her mind, puts to rest the Valonqar theory. If she has a fourth kid, she nullifies that theory and says, well, she was wrong. So there's a reason that way. Now, personally, if she is pregnant, I do think the child will be born, but either Jaime or Tyrion will end up killing her, essentially, just as that child's coming out. Specifically so that she, using the poison metaphor again, will not poison this kid like she poisoned her others. Like, she will not have a hand in the raising of this child to be this. And I think arguably that's going to be Jaime at that time when he does get to his realization. But yeah, no, I totally think it makes sense for them to have an heir, for not even just for them, but for the people. People love that sort of shit. They need to know that, well, so what happens when you die, Cersei? Then who's in charge? Like, they have to sort of have that knowledge of the.
But would the people accept that, an open relationship between?
That's the Targaryens.
The twins.
That's the Targaryens. They've always accepted that. It's just the last 30 years they haven't.
It's not. It's currently in Westeros, it's frowned upon. So no, I don't think the people would accept that Jaime and Cersei having a baby would unite the kingdom. It just,
in my head, regardless of whether or not they accept it, she's going about. We saw her answer the door. She doesn't give a shit about what the people think anymore, right? And she's the one in power, so she's sort of, you know, I personally, I think that she's knocked up. She's preggers, and
I think the reason that she's swanning around letting everybody know is because she thinks she's completely untouchable. This isn't spoiling anything whatsoever for the next episode, but the promo for the next episode, have you seen that, Calum?
I think he's busy at the moment.
Oh.
I actually haven't. I've seen the whole next episode, but I can't remember the promo whatsoever.
Okay, well, yeah, I don't think it's not really spoiling anything, but Cersei, there's a bit of a speech from Cersei where she talks about sorry, I'm distracted. Yeah, she talks about wanting to, basically her venture is to rule over everybody on the continent, like be in control of everyone on the continent. That's what she wants.
Sure. Which goes to what DJ was saying. Is it arguable that she could somehow join forces with the Night King or offer herself to him, which seems odd. But, I mean, to me, the only way that could happen is with a wedding, and she has to become part of him, which... It's interesting, though, the terms of monster in regards to her. Calum, where are you at? All right, moving on.
Hello?
There you are. Okay.
Sorry, needed to go to the bathroom.
Not a problem. So DJ says, and this is an interesting question, too. Are all of Randall Tarley's men wearing Lannister armor? He doesn't see a single, like every soldier is Lannister in Lannister armor, not varying degrees. Bronn is marching with Jaime against Tyrion. What will happen when the three eventually converge? Will Bronn remain loyal to Jaime and Cersei or go back to Tyrion? It's a good question. Any thoughts?
Can you repeat that? Can you repeat that? You cut out a bit for me.
Bronn's marching with Jaime. What happens when he does he choose a side when he meets Tyrion again when the three converge?
Oh, I think he'll stay loyal to Jaime.
You don't think he'll pick the winning side?
Ooh, I haven't. You know, it's kind of interesting when you ask questions like this that I haven't thought of, and it puts me on the spot. but yeah, no,
I can jump in while you think about it, Callum.
Go right ahead.
While you're thinking about it, I would say I've forgotten the question. I was thinking about something else. I was looking at my notes.
I'm looking at the clock behind you, and I'm just thinking, why am I up at this time?
Yeah. What was Tyrion?
Tyrion and Bronn. And
yeah.
Who does Bronn choose?
My answer would be that I don't think there is really much loyalty with Bronn. He'll go where the gold is, and he'll stay where the gold is.
Yeah, I think so. He's going to pick who he thinks is going to win, I believe, if that circumstance comes about. Unless there's something about Bronn that we don't know, which I honestly believe that there really is. He might really be opposed to, you know, Targaryens or something like that. I have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, to play devil's advocate, you could say that his drawing to the gold, and the gold being his primary motivator, would make him side with Jaime and Cersei, because they were the people who, obviously Tyrion brought him towards them. Tyrion brought Bronn and introduced them to Jaime and Cersei, but it was Jaime and Cersei that made Bronn rich. And so if his primary motivator is money, then it would make sense that his allegiance would lie to the person who gave him the money. You think?
Personally, I think his allegiance would be more to himself, but I mean, that's a good question. Like they were the ones that raised him up and gave him the lordship. Tyrion was never able to fulfill that. But do you pick who you think is the losing side just because they made you rich, or do you pick the side that you think will inevitably win the battle and be able to make you rich?
Yeah, but why? I mean, yeah, I can see what you're saying. I mean, if we were talking about a Game of Thrones Bronn, or season 2 Bronn, or whatever season it was when he saved Tyrion, obviously it was in the Game of Thrones, but I don't know when that corresponded with the TV show. Then I would completely agree that he would go wherever the money was, as quite clearly showed by the fact that he championed Tyrion in the trial by combat at the Eyrie. But I think now he has changed slightly, but we'll see. I think also he, assuming that goal is still his primary motivator, which I agree with you guys. I think it is. I think he's thinking, if Cersei and Jaime win, then my lordship and my wealth will increase. If Dany wins, it puts his wealth into question, because will she allow someone who is loyal to the Lannisters to maintain his lordship? Will she strip him of all his belongings and whatever? So in that sense, although you're thinking, yeah, he'll go to the winning side because his primary motivator is money, if he thinks about it more logically, assuming his primary motivator is money, then surely he'd pick the side where, if that side wins, he would get the most money. You see what I mean?
I see what you mean. I don't know. I think
it's a good debate, though.
Yeah, it is, and I think it also depends on what Tyrion would have to say to him to get him to cross over. I don't think he would just do it at the toss. Oh, there's Tyrion. I like that little guy, and I'm gonna go run with him. No, he's gonna have to sell himself and Dany pretty well if he's gonna make Bronn switch. moving on to anywhere. Where are we? Let's try to end this.
Yes, let's do the final sequence in which Casterly Rock is taken and Highgarden is taken.
Let's go Citadel first, and then we'll do
Citadel.
And hopefully, maybe we can talk with. Are you going to be available tomorrow, Calum?
When are you going to talk about Winterfell?
Yeah, exactly. I just saw that here too. Winterfell. Okay, let's do Winterfell, Claire.
Right. Okay. I'd say very quickly that I liked the Winterfell scenes better when I rewatched them. When initially I was a bit kind of, to be honest with you, really pissed off with Bran. Just irritated me. Just that kind of vacant, ascended sort of. What annoyed me was when they were sat outside the weirwood and Sansa clearly was kind of like, I don't understand what's going on. Can you explain? And I know that, you know, exposition for the show and the character arc and what have you, but I did say this to Catherine a couple of days ago. If I was Sansa, I would have been saying to him at the time, give me something practical that we can do to defeat the enemy, or fuck off back to the tree that you came from, because you're really pissing me off right now. You know, you're not giving me anything. There's nothing. He's just being weird and cryptic and you know, I need to see better and I need to speak to John and we need to be ready. And it's like, no shit. I don't quite get what it is that he's able to. Right, this is where I get really confused with Bran and his abilities, especially on the show. It makes sense to me that he can see things in the past when he's doing his time traveling stuff. If he's near a weirwood, that's how it seems to have been on most occasions, with the flashback to, well, everything, the flashback to the children of the forest and the first White Walker scene was weirwoods, and there's been other, I'm just trying to think, but when he told Sansa about the wedding and the wedding day and everything, that would have been, he would have been able to see through the tree. But it seems to be that he can now be anywhere and see anything and listen to any conversation, and he just needs to kind of hone that. I mean, I imagine if that's what is going on in his head, then he wouldn't be able to have a kind of normal conversation with anyone ever again, really, family or not. But it still irritated me that I didn't get my other Stark sibling reunion that was like emotional and, you know, kind of, it just seemed, everything about it felt just quite flat, and Bran just irritated me. Not the actor, I thought he did a pretty good job, but it wasn't, Bran wasn't my favorite scene in Winterfell.
Gotcha. Calum?
No, you go on this, MP.
I'm just sort of going back and thinking, yeah, it is weird that Bran can sort of, doesn't need to be tied to the network anymore. He can just enter a room and see, which I guess we saw with the Tower of Joy. They got inside the room there and just sort of sat there watching. But I was about to argue, hey, maybe he couldn't, and maybe when he's talking to Sansa, he is just specifically talking about the wedding and doesn't really know the other things, or maybe just thoughts after. I feel like at some point, Bran, to get this higher power where he can see better, he's going to take it upon himself to realize that what he needs to do is see what people's motivations are for doing the things that they're doing, and that's going to send Bran to the dark side, because that's abomination, as we know, if you enter somebody's mind, which I think eventually he's going to want to do, to try to understand why people are making the choices that they're making or doing. I mean, I don't know, I'm just spitballing here, but
yeah,
interesting. I'll go with what DJ has to say. Littlefinger says, fight every battle everywhere, always in your mind. Everyone is your enemy. Everyone is your friend. Every possible series of events is happening all at once. Live that way and nothing will surprise you. Everything that happens will be something that you've seen before. When Sansa is called to see Bran, Littlefinger looks down like he knows what's waiting at the gate for her. Now it's tinfoil. These words and actions make me wonder if Littlefinger has some kind of green sight. If it's true that Sweet Robin is his son, and Sweet Robin often hints that he has visions and hears whispers and has seizures, much like Jojen, then maybe Sweet Robin inherited this trait from Littlefinger, or he is possibly in cahoots with someone who passes him this kind of information. Thoughts?
I also picked up on that scene, but I had a completely different take on it. So I don't think Littlefinger is a Green Seer or has any Green Seer powers. But what I took from it instantly was, so obviously, like I can't remember the quote, but you just listed it where he says, see everything, everyone's your enemy, everyone's your friend, etc., etc. And then, of course, in the next scene, we see Bran, and he's essentially described exactly what Bran can do.
That was my take too.
And of course, Bran knows that because Bran can see everything, Bran knows that Littlefinger betrayed Ned, assuming he's gone back and seen it. He knows that Littlefinger betrayed Sansa when with his plans for her with the Boltons, and so maybe that sort of connection is hinting at like something taking place between Littlefinger and Bran, because we saw in the have you guys seen the trailer for next episode?
Yeah, Claire just asked you that earlier.
The trailer.
Yeah, you were gone.
Oh, yeah, but in the trailer we see Littlefinger unsheathing Bran's knife. So I'm wondering if because of obviously the fact that we see basically Littlefinger describing exactly what Bran can do, then transition to a scene of Bran. Bran knows Littlefinger's secrets, so Bran is therefore a threat to Littlefinger, and now Littlefinger has a dagger. Thoughts? Because Bran at the moment it has to be the biggest threat to Littlefinger, because he's the only person who can know.
I can't answer anything, and I don't think Claire can.
No comment.
Oh, have I picked something here?
No. We're not saying anything. But DJ would say.
I'm intrigued now.
Bran appears to have lost touch with his humanity, which I think Claire obviously alluded to as well. He's just creepy now. He's weird. Now, whether or not that's a bad thing or he's just struggling with this power of his, I have to point out that it's weird that he says that he can't be, or that he's not a lord, he's the three-eyed raven or whatever. No, well, I'll get into that maybe some other time. Sansa, this is a good point. Sansa immediately starts talking about how Bran should be the rightful heir to Winterfell. She is already scheming to get Jon out of power. I like that hiss.
Is she scheming? I think she will scheme, but is she scheming now? Is my question. I don't think she is. I don't think she fully understands that she wants Jon out of power yet. But I think she will come to realize it soon.
Yeah, because she's gonna disagree with the way he's running things at some point, I imagine, and say that
she already has him. Like she already has on numerous occasions. Obviously, the first being the battle strategy with regards to how to defeat Ramsay's force, and then obviously we've had multiple public disagreements. How the treasonous families should respond to the treasonous families. And there was one other one actually, which I can't really remember now. Oh yeah, when Jon said he would go south, she says he shouldn't. So yeah, there's definitely a rift widening between them. But I think I've detailed why I think that Sansa will betray Jon, haven't I? Or is that just in private?
It might have been private, but there's always time. Here he says, Bran says, I can never be Lord of Winterfell. I'm the three-eyed raven. Reminds me of the Night's Watch vows. Is there some connection between the Night's Watch and three-eyed ravens? Did they once work together towards a common goal? to that, I'm just going to say, when Bran says, I can never be Lord of Winterfell, I personally am hoping that he's seen something that tells him that that's not his actual spot ever. Because he's technically a Snow, and Jon's the only true Stark.
There's potential that that could be the case, although I just think that he understands that he has more important responsibilities to take care of, and he can't be wasting hours in his day, you know, lording over Winterfell when he needs to be doing his Green Sea duties.
I get it. Trust me, I understand. So this is actually a really good point here, and I would like to know what you guys think about this. One of my favorite things that DJ has to say. He says, Bran says, the three-eyed raven taught me, and Sansa says, I thought you were the three-eyed raven. And then he goes tinfoil again. When Bran first meets Bloodraven, he says, are you the three-eyed crow? To which Bloodraven responds with a crow, like he has no idea what he's talking about. DJ then goes on to say, is it possible that the book versus the show is referenced with crow versus raven? So, you know, the same beast, but represented technically slightly different.
That's a brilliant catch.
Yeah, I thought it was too. I really think Bran has always been the three-eyed crow and has been passing messages down through time and pushing himself into the position he's in now. But it's just interesting, like, book versus show equals crow versus raven, which, I mean, I kind of like that aspect. I wish she was here to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Claire? I know you kind of said that they're different entities many a time before.
Yeah, I did have a thought, and now I don't.
Right. I know. I was rambling.
I think it's, yeah, I think it's interesting that Bran could be the three-eyed raven, that he, you know, it's the cyclical thing with Bran, I think, definitely. So, and wasn't there a clip at one point when the Reeds first came into it where Jojen said, you are the three-eyed raven, or something like that? It's, yeah, so I think that he could, I don't know, I think Bran's kind of been there before, and
sure,
I'm not quite sure what the catalyst is this time for this happening, but I think there's a cyclical thing that goes on with them, you know, the whole Bran three-eyed raven, three-eyed crow thing.
It's funny, I'm getting messages showing up. People are yelling at me at small council. They're having a real hard time listening to my theories. So just comments showing up, which is fine, by the way. You're allowed to have a hard time listening to my theories.
Makes it all sweeter if and when they come to fruition.
That's exactly the point. Sorry. Yeah, I have always thought that it's two. Well, not always thought, but recently I've thought that there's two versions. There's the ice version, which would be Bran, and there's the fire version, which would be Bloodraven or Brynden. It's weird that it's Brynden and Brandon, like two very similar names. I know we talked about this before, Calum. Do you two think that Bran has farsight now? Can he see into the future like Jojen could, see things before they're going to happen? I'm stumped on that as well. It's just
not sure.
My answer would be no. I don't think so. I think it's he can see into the past through tapping into the Weirwood network, but I think he's got more. He's the green seer that's got more advanced power than any other green, you know, head green seer or whatever they're called, that's ever been there in the past. Yeah, head green seer, the chief one. But I think that he will. I think that he'll be able to glean enough knowledge from putting pieces together and patterns together from going and visiting the past and the present, to be able to inform what might be happening in the future. But no, I don't think he can see into the future.
Okay, no, that's good. I'm kind of hoping that's the way it is too. It's just weird to me that the green seers go backwards, and we've talked about this again too, so we don't have to get into it. And Mel, the fire seers, see into the future. And then the glass candles seem to be this sort of current situation. But I guess the green seeing is also current as well. Like he can see things as they're currently happening. Like when he saw the White Walkers marching at the wall with the giants and everything. But it's just it's strange for me. Anything else you guys want to specifically talk about? What about the Citadel and Jorah?
I don't have any notes. I can't really remember that actually. Well, is it just the one scene where Sam is in the Archmaester's like office sort of thing, and then Bran gets no reward for his successful successful operation? Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to points I've made previously again, which is it's sort of the irony of the Archmaester being the most closed off with regards to how far he wants to progress his knowledge, whereas Sam seems like the actual, not perfect, but more suited to that sort of work, because he's very open to being sort of informed or open to, you know, changing his mind based on evidence, whereas a lot of them seem to be very they write things off before giving them a fair evaluation, which is obviously a contradiction of the role they're supposed to play. So that's all I'd say to that.
You have anything, Claire?
Oh, I'm not muted. It was just I was muting myself. So I just need to speak. That works.
The first for everything.
I have quite a bit to say here because Sam was one of my favourite characters.
Before you start, I want to ask you one question, and then I'll let you go. Did you look at his pin? Okay, go for it. Speak away.
But only to me that it looked like a little junior hand, like a tiny little baby pin for the hand. But anyway,
yeah.
Sam and Jorah, I think that was quite a touching, emotional scene in a way, because for me, it's, and I'm sure this was in the show as well as the books, I'm certain of it, and I talked about this with Catherine the other day, that G.O., when Sam was with him, you know, the sabotage at Craster's Keep, when the old bear was killed, I'm sure that he said in the TV show as well as the books, "Tell my son I forgive him." Those were his final, like, last dying words. And I think that it feels to me like the old bear was the one who saved his son by using Sam as a vehicle. And I'm wondering if Jorah will recognise that and whether or not it will make him feel more back in tune with his northern roots and House Mormon, and whether or not when he gets back with Dany, because I'm sure that's going to happen now the infection's gone, that he will be a key person in persuading Ice and Fire, Jon and Dany to work together, because he'll be vouching for the North now. because he was saved by somebody who was kind of an agent of his father in a way. I was disappointed that we didn't get to hear Sam say those words, your father wants you to know that he's forgiven you. But again, it's that bittersweet. We know it, but maybe Jorah will just never get to know that. But at the same time, his father did save his life in a way. That was my take on that.
Oh,
really? The other thing that just the other thing about the scrolls, really. Obviously, it sounds like a horrible job, but there's going to be something discovered in those scrolls. And what do we think it could be, considering he's already found quite a bit already? He's found the whole Dragonstone, dragon glass thing, so that's been useful. He's cured grayscale, so that's been useful. What else is there for Sam to discover to advance the plot in those old scrolls? And bearing in mind they're old, so I don't think it's going to be anything to do with Jon's parentage. I don't think that that information will be recorded there. As neat as that would be for Sam to get that information and then feed that back to Jon, because Jon would believe it because it's coming from Sam, it would have more credence, I think. But I don't think it is that. I think they're old scrolls, and we're going to find out something about how to. It's something about the elements, this elemental magic thing, more about ice magic, possibly how to defeat the White Walkers. I think there'll be something in there that is crucial to the rest of the season, but I don't know what it is.
I think it will be, and among the other things that you mentioned, but I think it will be why the White Walkers were created, is what I think. I mean, I don't know if Bran even knows this yet, but Sam might be able to figure it out in the histories of why they're created, and then because of that go about figuring out how to defeat them, or what's needed to be done to defeat them, which is essentially, in my head, just coming together, uniting as a team rather than being, squabbling over everything. That's my personal opinion. Did you think that he was going to get his link for his?
Yeah. I did. Yeah. And actually, on that point, I just want to say that I think Sam is gifted. Actually, I think he's got amazing gifts as a healer, and as a Meister, and as everything that the Meisters basically are supposed to be and supposed to stand for. Because he didn't. If it was just a case of I read the books and followed the instructions, why has grayscale never been cured before? Why it took Sam to come along to do it? I think he's got healing powers. I think there's something very special about him, and he's gifted, which is poetic, kind of contrary to his father, Randall Tarley. His view on Sam as being just completely useless, no talents, no gifts, in fact, an embarrassment to the house. And I think he would, if the story ever progressed and Sam ends up being, the narrator, effectively, of the whole Song of Ice and Fire, I think he will end up being like a renowned, famous, infamous Archmeister, like the Archmeister.
Sure. He's on the show at some point, right? One other thing I wanted to say, what was it? By the way, Dany was, well, not just Dany, but Dany was the infection. That's the symbolism. So I think you're perfectly correct about Jorah. When he goes north, he's going to be in tune again with when he was a better man. Instead of just living for women and trying to please them all the time, he's going to realize that there's more to life than just, but that wasn't what I was going to say. What was it? I can't think about it. I can't. I think it was a question for Calum too.
Did you just do a me?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Did you ever find out what it was that you missed that time?
I did, but I'm never gonna reveal it.
Was it about the scrolls?
It was the best thing ever too, and he's not telling any of us. Yeah.
Was it about the scrolls? What information would be in the scrolls?
No, there was, of course, just a nod that even though it seems like a punishment, that is also the reward, in some sense. And Sam loves doing that sort of shit, anyways. That's like that's great fun for him. No, it wasn't that. That's all it. That's all it was just how brave, once again, Sam was at the end of it, shaking Jorah's hand. And just like, nobody would do that. But Sam, sure, I fixed you. I ain't scared of you. It was great.
I got nervous when they were shaking hands, but of course, yeah, you're right. Bran, yeah. I'm very tired now.
Okay, last thing, we'll do Casterly Rock and the invasion.
Should I can jump out if you guys want to discuss it in depth, because I have nothing really to say about it.
I don't think we'll discuss in depth. I'm just going to quickly blast through my point about thinking that it's a visual representation with the narration over it of semen impregnating an egg. Go back and watch it. Just watch it, specifically the second successful version of when they all storm through, and it's just, that's what it's telling us, and the narration goes with that. That the first attempt is false. It doesn't happen. It's unsuccessful, which is Tywin's sterility, and Tyrion says. But in the end, Tywin did bring this house up from the ground up, which I think it will be proven later on that instead of Aerys, Tywin actually had his brothers sleep with Joanna to get her pregnant because he knew he couldn't do it, and he still wanted his golden Lannister child. And that said, at the end of the successful scene, we see Euron's ship sort of sailing through, which was Aerys. Aerys came in after Tywin, and for a while there thought that the kids were his until he realized at some point that, you know what, they're not. And then he cut off the engagement between Cersei and Rhaegar, whereas originally they were intended to marry, and then he decided against it and started looking for somebody more Targaryen. And I'll just quickly leave it at that. But please, everybody, go back and watch that. And just, if you see that scene, you'll be able to see I think you'll be able to see the metaphor that they're visually trying, regardless of theory, at least that is what they were trying to show us.
Yeah.
Claire? All right, are we done then?
I'm done, yeah.
Yeah, I'm
sorry, guy. For those of you who don't know, well, which will be all of you, I was up today at 8 a.m. and it's now almost 2:30 a.m. So it's bedtime for me.
Gotcha. No worries.
Yeah. Are you going to say anything about Olenna Highgarden? Have we said that already?
Go for it. Calum, if you want to jump out, go ahead, but
you're killing me.
You want to hang around and listen to Claire?
No, all I was going to say is that she just stayed true to herself right to the end. And at first, when I first watched it, I was a bit like, well, big deal. We knew that. We kind of knew that already. It wasn't like a huge reveal, but it was to Jaime and the implications that will have. And now he knows that it wasn't Tyrion. But yeah, like I mentioned my point before, which was he used a women's weapon to take her out.
See, when that scene came up for me, I knew there was going to be poison, but I thought that Olenna had poisoned the wine, and then when Jaime walked in and poured it, that's as soon as I said, oh, there's poison in the wine. I thought it was her poisoning him, but Cersei was still too smart, and she would have told him, don't drink the wine or anything offered to you, she's going to kill you. But then, of course, he flipped it, and it was Jaime poisoning Olenna. But I knew that there was going to be poisoning happening. I don't know if it was just because of the earlier scene or not. But yeah.
I like the fact that she just threw it down. No, you know, like a boss.
I hope for her sake that they did that all in one take, and she just didn't have to keep downing full glasses of whatever it was that she drank. I'm sure it wasn't wine, but
Ribena.
it was that she chugged. Yeah.
But yeah, I think there will be implications for her. You know, seeds. I think she's sowed seeds here and there, and we'll be reminded of Olenna from time to time for the rest of the series.
Sure. Yeah.
The seed is strong.
Yeah.
Yes, the Baratheon seed is strong.
Yes, it is.
Not for Stannis though, and his red-headed kid.
We don't.
No, bedtime.
I was gonna honestly, I was gonna get into Stannis, and then I just thought it's not worth it.
Next time we'll have many more times. All right, everybody. Thank you very much, Claire. I appreciate it for you stepping in for DJ. Thank you very much. Calum, great as always. And everybody, go check out. I'll link your channel below too, Claire.
Oh, thank. If you can link Catherine's as well, because that's where we'll be on Monday.
Okay, I shall. I'll have to find it, but I didn't realize. I know she. Yeah. I don't think I'm subbed to the Nail Polish channel, but yes, no, I absolutely will for sure. And send my message and tell her that I want to see some comments again.
Okay. Well, she doesn't want watch stuff so that she gets spoiled. You see, so
that's all right. We go on Saturdays. We're way late.
yeah, that's true.
It's all right. People are generally Game of Thrones out by the time we do our episodes, so it's all good. It's all good. Anyways, thanks again, guys, and we will talk again soon.
Bye.
Bye.